The Outback isn't just an important model for Subaru, it's a standout among all crossovers. As this generation comes to a close, I'd like to go over the things I hope Subaru changes, along with what makes this such a knockout. While dudes with restraining orders love to hate on outdoorsy Outback owners and their style, the lifted wagon design is crucial to its success. It comes with a minimum of 8.7 inches of ground clearance while retaining a very car-like ride height, and that low roof makes it easier to use the standard deployable crossbars. Or if you go with the Wilderness, you can haul a monster rooftop tent with its fixed rails. Big windows won't give it the most aggressive design, but it makes it very easy to see out of. Yes, the cladding has entered goofy hours in certain areas, but if you constantly drive on gravel roads, which a lot of Outback owners actually do, it protects your paint. Also useful are standard steering responsive LED projector headlamps with fog lights. Proxy entry is also on most Outbacks. You will also have alloy wheels with plenty of sidewall on all Outbacks. That chunky rubber may not impress your crush at the farmer's market, but the ride quality might. Okay, that is optimistic, but I appreciate having the extra sidewall in a vehicle like this. So you can go with a very basic Outback. You can also get the adventurous Onyx edition, the borderline concerning Wilderness, and then the Touring with its plastic brushed aluminum accents. Personally, if I had to choose an Outback, I think I would go with the Wilderness for the novelty of it, but let me know what you guys think in the comments section. No matter your pick, for a great buying experience from a dealership that refused to sell over MSRP, call the knowledgeable, friendly people over at Royal on the Eastside in Bloomington, Indiana. I'd like to thank them for letting me test drive the Outbacks for today's review. The Subi was refreshed for 2023. In 2024, we saw minimal changes. The Wilderness gets a slightly updated front, and all of the rugged grades gain more features. But the added features to the Onyx edition in particular make it more expensive and eliminate its former value proposition in the lineup. However, the interior is still a differentiating factor from its competitors. The first thing I notice is that it has a almost sedan-like seating position. Your legs extend out further, and that's complemented by excellent seats. The driver's side on the Limited and Touring actually gets an extendo seat cushion that makes this very accommodating for tall people. The seats themselves are plush and well contoured to my body with just a little bit of bolstering, and lumbar adjustment comes on all except for the base. Subaru also cared about the details of comfort, so you have superbly soft elbow rests, but also padding where your knees may rest if you have longer legs. Soft touch also continues in areas where it's not really needed, like on the dashboard. The ambiance is simple and upscale for a Subaru. The accents aren't interesting, but I like the stitching that changes color depending on which trim you have. Leather comes on the top dogs, cloth on the entry specs, and a durable synthetic leather called StarTex with the tough trims. Unfortunately, on most specs, you will find a fair amount of glossy black plastic, which is easily scratched and leaves more fingerprints than a sloppy criminal. But they don't use that on the steering wheel or most buttons. In fact, there's not really a lot of buttons in here. We do have an 11.6-inch touchscreen here on the premium trim and up. This is the centerpiece of the cabin, and it is just okay. The response time, even if you let it warm up, is toward the bottom of the class. The resolution is all right, though it's not all bad. You have an easy to understand interface, physical buttons to control some of the key climate functions, and for 2023, more of the HVAC controls are constantly available on the screen. Yes, they are embedded, and I wish they didn't do that overall, but it's implemented fairly well, and in 23, they also added wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. The base will actually get a dual 7-inch setup that looks very cheap, and your CarPlay will be wired there. Moving forward, I'd like to see Subaru bring back more physical controls or substantially improve the hardware to make this feel up to the times. Outside of the bigger screen, I'd recommend the premium trim as it adds 2 tweeters to the base 4-speaker sound system that comes with okay bass but disappointing clarity. A 12-speaker Harman Kardon unit is standard on the Onyx edition and up. That performs much better at high volumes with good bass
space too.
One oddly helpful feature that the Subaru offers is a face detection system, which can alert you if you're not paying attention or falling asleep.
You can also tell it to associate certain faces with certain memory settings for the seats and exterior mirrors.
Outside of that, this is far from a techie interior. They don't offer a head-up display, and the gauge cluster is mostly analog. I also kind of wish that they offered a panoramic sunroof like the Forester. But I am happy to see acceptable interior storage through various smaller cubbies. I'm 6'3", and behind myself in a comfortable position, I have a little bit of legroom to spare, and I have plenty of headroom. The same soft touch materials adorn where my knee will rest. And so long as you get the premium trim, you will have rear console vents, you'll get heated outboard seats on the limited wilderness and touring, but more important than that, the comfort levels. I just have great support back here. You even have the ability to recline your seats some, and I could bring whatever type of map or booklet that I could ever dream of. The cargo area of the Subaru Outback is very long, while also providing a fairly wide and low entry point. I think the Forester's more boxy shape will give it versatility points if you're trying to move large items, but this would actually be a very comfortable vehicle to camp out of. You have little releases for the second row and a cargo light. The sensible form factor of the Outback helps make it a great family car to drive, though it is traditionally boring in almost every way. And that doesn't really matter. A key aspect to this thing's appliance nature is its 2.5-liter naturally aspirated Boxer 4. This clocks in at 182 horsepower, and that is honestly enough for this kind of vehicle. One of the Outback's biggest virtues is that it's rarely excessive. Except if you want it to be, they offer a 2.4-liter turbocharged Boxer 4, which makes 260 horsepower and a very potent 277 pound-feet of torque on regular fuel.
That holds the XT moniker and is optional with the Onyx Limited and Touring, standard with the Wilderness. It will also cause an amateur WRX owner to lose their girlfriend if they make the ill-advised decision to race your Outback.
Here's what that did to 60 just a month ago. Super slow off the line. Pulls. 5.7 seconds to 60 is even more impressive when you consider how slow the thing takes off. No matter what, the CVT just can't immediately put down the power. The turbo engine is more about effortless passing, which it does well, though I should note, when combined with the continuously variable transmission that is standard on all Outbacks and a little bit of turbo lag, there is going to be some delay in your power delivery. The naturally aspirated engine does a good job of just completing your requests. It immediately jumps to whatever RPM you need it to. It will fake shifts if you're kind of accelerating at like half throttle. If you plan it, it will definitely sound like a lawnmower. The purpose here is efficiency, and it does that very well. 0 to 60 with that, at best, comes up in the high 8-second mark.
It's linear but far from spirited. Passing power is acceptable, but give yourself a nice window if you're at highway speeds.
She's not quick, but if you don't have a need for speed and you're not hauling a lot of people at high elevation, I think you'll be fine. And no matter which engine you go with, you will have an excellent all-wheel drive system, and here's why. Most systems can only send about 50% of torque to the rear wheels. This can send a lot more than that, and it is full-time with equal length drive shafts, which makes it a very balanced system. This also does have X mode as standard, which its primary function is to use the brakes to redirect torque side to side to help you get through snow and dirt. If you get the Onyx Edition or the Wilderness, that will add a deep snow and mud mode, which allows for more wheel spin, increasing your capability. And the Wilderness adds a dizzying amount of upgrades, from a beefier suspension, which will actually help it on bad roads even more, to an increased final drive ratio, a low-speed crawl built into X mode,
9.5 inches of ground clearance, and a full-size spare, something that you will also find in the Onyx XT, but take note, the wilderness will affect your gas mileage. The Outback won't trump a 4Runner over rocks, but the all-wheel drive system is no gimmick. When traction is low, it has a sure-footedness few can match.
Bringing it up to speed here at 65 miles per hour, it's going to fluctuate between about 1500 and 2000 RPM. Even with the crossbars up, wind noise isn't too bad and road noise is kept down nicely. If you're spending $45,000 on the top spec model, I think it's still quiet for the money. Where the Outback shines the most is on a gruesome Indiana back road. Going over even larger potholes and breaks in the pavement, this is comfortable. Nothing really jars the cabin. It floats over small breaks in the pavement. You feel the medium-sized impacts, but it's still incredibly smooth and very controlled. This ride quality in combination with these seats makes it among the most comfortable vehicles you can buy for 40 grand. And part of the reason why this has such a nice ride is because they didn't need to spring this to compensate for a high center of gravity.
You can partially thank the flat engine design for that, but its relatively low weight for an SUV also takes a load off of the springs.
Though this definitely leans toward a soft ride versus a sporty one. Throwing it around corners, there's a noticeable amount of body roll. As you bring it up to more speed, that becomes more apparent, but it's not something that's going to nauseate anyone, and you'd be exaggerating to call it boatish. And if your tattered roads also get windy, the Outback has a great level of control. This will obviously have independent rear suspension. Again, there's a decent amount of roll there, but despite that, it remains sure-footed and confident, just not to the degree of some like luxury SUVs.
The steering is also quick. You would expect it to be light and numb, and it is, but it's also vague on center, keeping it from feeling natural, something the new Crosstrek fixed, so I hope to see that for the next Outback too. This was designed to isolate you from the road, not for entertainment. If you want something fun to drive, maybe consider a CX-50. Another advantage from its reasonable size is that it's easy to drive.
Visibility is great. You have a short dashboard, reasonably sized windshield that's close to you, a low belt line for a car-like vehicle. This feels very approachable. I'd also label this generation of Outback as reliable, though far from perfect.
Subaru made changes in deck design and gasket material over a decade ago that has made head gasket failure a non-issue, though by design, a flat engine is a little more susceptible to that way down the road. Excessive oil consumption was also a problem they fixed around 2017. The Lineartronic CVTs have been continuously improved too. After the redesign, early XT models had a recall related to the PCM that would cause transmission problems. Some had thermo control valves that would fail, causing the engine to get confused. That was fixed for 2022. Currently, the most annoying issues people face are related to the infotainment and electrical, easily cracking windshields that are not cheap to replace, and cheap stock batteries. Overall, if people do run into issues, most of them are not serious. So if you prioritize reliability, I'd recommend one, especially in naturally aspirated form. Just keep on top of maintenance, including fuel induction cleaner, as it is direct injected only. Resale value is also strong due to its cult following, so that should help protect your investment. Safety-wise, this aces all crash tests, and the newest EyeSight is supposed to work well in intersections and comes with autonomous braking, lane centering, and adaptive cruise. Blind spot monitoring and emergency steering are available too. If you want to avoid parking lot or trail accidents, no 360 view camera is offered, but a front camera comes with the Onyx XT, Wilderness, and Touring.
From a distance, it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot to be excited about with the Outback. But when you look closer, it's hard to think of a car that's similar. Even if you're comparing this to mid-size SUVs, this has a competitive amount of passenger space and cargo space, but it does this without feeling bloated.
Which was the point of a crossover to begin with. Give people SUV versatility with the road manners and footprint of a sedan, or in this case, a wagon. The Outback could be bigger to better separate it from the Forester. It could come with a more powerful base engine or more of a brash attitude, but all of that would increase the price and make it less sensible to drive. do we really need more of that? The Subi is short of perfection, the tech does need improvement, and I hope they address the steering like they did with the Crosstrek, but overall, if you need a two-row crossover that can get you to most places in any weather, with comfort that's a class above its price point, the Outback remains a force to be reckoned with. And I really hope Subaru doesn't stray away from this formula. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like to help me take on the YouTube algorithm. Subscribe and hit the bell for more fun, detailed car content without fluff. Check out my Patreon for an additional podcast, and I'll catch you in the next one.